We almost had football Sunday night until we didn't, the field debacle in Canton, Ohio. So according to our Jim Trotter, NFL Executive VP Troy Vincent sent a memo to all 32 teams today explaining how the field painting fiasco resulted in the cancellation of the first preseason game. So here's what Vincent said. While the Hall of Fame field situation underscored the challenges in working with third parties, ultimately, I'm accountable for ensuring the field is of the highest standard. Vincent said the league's football operations department had to, quote, demand and expect an extra level of detail in adhering to NFL standards for non-club fields. Max, should Troy Vincent be taking the blame here?
No. And listen, to me, this is not about protocol or how it's supposed to be done. First of all, it's not even an NFL joint, really. It's a Pro Football Hall of Fame joint. And the NFL is here getting out in front of it because, as because Stephen A. Smith was going off the other day on, don't give me this is driven by the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. So they're getting out ahead of it. Look, yes, it's not our jurisdiction exactly, but if our name is associated with anything, we have to make sure and take an extra step, even though it's really their fault, but okay, we're dealing with a third party, we have to hold it to higher standards, et cetera. That's good, and if protocol is that Troy Vincent's the guy who should be saying that, that's fine too. But it is at the very least a missed opportunity for Roger Goodell. Because, look, if he wants to be judge, jury, and executioner, if he wants the buck to stop with him, then here's an issue where, according to the NFL, and we all know they didn't really mess up that bad, but they're taking the blame if there's a mess up like that. If it's not Goodell who we see taking responsibility, it looks as though, whether or not it's actually the case, that he's passing the buck, that the buck is not stopping with him, that he sends a fall guy out to say, okay, it's our fault. Whatever the protocol is, whatever, I'm talking about the spirit of the thing, the same way, Stephen A., the other day you were saying, look, don't give me this Pro Football Hall of Fame stuff. This is the NFL. Don't give me this Troy Vincent stuff. It's Roger Goodell.
No, I'm going to say it's Troy Vincent. I covered Troy Vincent in Philadelphia. I know him. He's a good man. He messed up here, and I appreciate him accepting accountability for it because that's where the accountability belongs. You can't tell me that the commissioner, he's ultimately responsible and the buck stops with him. We understand it from that premise. But to get into the specificity of the situation, the reality is that you can't ignore the fact that everybody is allocated certain responsibilities, that they have certain job descriptions. This is under Troy Vincent's job description, okay? And in some respects, he dropped the ball. I applaud Troy Vincent for sending out this memo to all 32 teams, knowing that it would probably get out to the media, by the way, and giving details. For example, the decking that covered the field was not fully removed until 2:45 p.m. Sunday, despite league personnel being told it would be completed by 8 a.m. So you're talking about a 6+ hour difference in which you didn't pull the cover off of the field. There was some crusting, according to the tester, that existed, but it was supposed to break up if the players ran over it several times. We see all of that stuff. But here's why, Max. Not only is it on Troy, but it should be on Troy, because you can't have it on Roger Goodell. You can't have it on Roger Goodell because it's the Hall of Fame. What you don't want to do is you want the NFL to have some respectable distance from what you're seeing from, from the Hall of Fame. Because the more the commissioner ingratiates himself into the equation, then all of a sudden you say, well, what else does he ingratiate himself in? I mean, is he going to start picking Hall of Famers for crying out loud? If he's going to start having to say as to who goes in and who goes out, who gets inducted, what year they're going to get inducted to? Not to say, of course, that's far-fetched. That's reaching. But that's what you have to shield yourself from.
The optics.
The optics. Those are the optics you have to shield yourself from if you're somebody in the commissioner's position. When you go to individuals that are subordinates under him, then you get into the specifics of their job description. So when Troy Vincent writes, going forward, the NFL, the NFLPA, Field Surface Safety and Performance Committee, blah, 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 blah. Now we're getting into the minutia. Direct responsibilities held by specific subordinates. And when you have that, it gives and it lends itself, optically speaking, towards having a healthy distance from something you want to be distant from, because you don't want anyone to assume you have ingratiated yourself with this particular organization to such a degree that you have undue influence. That is why it's important that Troy Vincent stepped out front and took the blame for this instead of Roger Goodell.
Troy Vincent has underlings, too. There are people who work under Troy Vincent, but they didn't release a statement. He did, because the idea is the NFL as a league is trying to show responsibility. Like, look, guys, this isn't really our responsibility, but let's forget all about that. We're going to take responsibility. Well, who's we? Ultimately, where does the buck stop?
Again, we know the buck stops for Roger Goodell.
Especially a
but
commissioner.
Not the minutia. Not the minutia.
Well, especially a commissioner who's very interested in the minutia in terms of meting out punishment.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. The reason why the commissioner is involved in meting out punishment and why his name was raked through the coals is because of the punishments he handed down and how he didn't seem knowledgeable about certain things. Let's revisit Ray Rice for a second. Not that this has anything to do with that, but let's revisit it from the standpoint. Roger Goodell's initial punishment was 2 games. 2 games. And everybody like, what the hell is this about? You know, people were going off on him because what are you thinking? Okay? People like myself did not go off on him. Maybe I should have. I dropped the ball on that. But the point is that when you weed out punishment, you act as if you're an authority on the matter and you're knowledgeable enough to exact punishment in something this minute. I don't want to say minute as in not important, but in terms of these tedious details as it pertains to this issue. That's above the commissioner. I mean, come on, the commissioner has, I mean, that's way below.
By the way,
the
when you say I dropped the ball on that, you don't send your assistant out to say that they dropped the ball, right? You say you dropped the ball.
I don't do it, but I will tell you this. If I give my assistant certain responsibility, like, for example, if somebody says, if I have my assistant make travel arrangements for Max and Molly, and she don't make those travel arrangements, I'll tell y'all my bad.
Yes, you would.
But I would also say, she dropped it, I'll deal with it.
Right.
Because she did.
Right.
If that would have
happened. In that analogy,
okay?
She's Vincent and you're Goodell.
There you go.
Yeah, right. So Goodell, you know.
Again, I'm just saying.
Bold, strong arguments on this one.
I understand your point. You're probably not wrong. Maybe Goodell doesn't listen. It's such a minor thing. Do I need to have my name attached to something bad? Every time someone thinks my name, they think bad, negative, bad. Let's not do it this time. I'm just saying that if that comes with a job description, if you want to be involved in various levels of minutia and be the judge, jury, and executioner, it doesn't look, in terms of the optics from this point of view, and maybe Goodell's in a no-win situation every time something happens. If he does something, it's wrong. If he doesn't do something, he's wrong. In this case, it looks like he's shoving someone out there to take the blame.
Here's where Goodell's name should come into the equation. When people want not just refunds for their game tickets, but they might want their airline tickets reimbursed, their gas reimbursed, their hotels reimbursed. Now you're talking money. And if you're talking money for thousands of patrons who got who got messed over.
Hey, Troy, don't tell them why they're not getting their money.
Then the commissioner, that involves money. You see the difference? Not paint on a field that congealed. You're talking money now. That's when the commissioner should be heard.
Troy, come here. You did such a good job telling everyone about the paint. Could you go out and tell them they're not getting their money back?
Can you be the fall guy today?
There you go.
Oh, we'll leave it there. Coming up